The wide range of underfloor heating systems for renovations are probably one of the biggest surprises to most people. A few years ago, you wouldn't have been able to put underfloor heating in a renovation because of the height build-up a traditional screed would add to the floor. You'd have had to consider the cost and disruption of digging up floors. Now that's changed massively, and we've been real leaders in this, and our discreet low-pro range is designed specifically to be installed over the top of existing floors with minimal height build-up. Our slimmest product actually allows you to put in a warm water underfloor heating system with as little as a 15mm build-up over an existing floor, which is tiny. It's about the size of a 5p piece. So a really minimal height build-up with no need for a structural deck on top. Our low-pro systems are really high-performing and responsive, so deliver all of the benefits you'd expect of underfloor heating in a renovation scenario. Before we get into the products, I'd just like to talk about some considerations when it comes to adding underfloor heating to existing properties. One consideration is downwards heat loss. If installing low-pro over an existing concrete floor, adding an insulation layer is not required because ground temperatures remain fairly static at around 12 degrees all year round. This results in roughly a 6% downwards heat loss, which we can factor into your system design. There's actually a clause in Part L building regs that takes into account the financial viability of doing works. If it takes longer than about 15 years to recoup your costs, it's not considered financially viable, and the cost of digging up an existing concrete floor could take up to 200 years to recoup. But if you're installing low-pro over a joisted or suspended timber ground floor, it's a very different story. In this scenario, with a vented space below, your downwards heat losses can be as much as 45%. In this type of installation, you will absolutely need to insulate between the joists. One way of doing this is to lift the floor deck, put a net across the floor and roll out mineral wool insulation between the joists before replacing the deck, ready for the low-pro system to go down. We'd insist on this. So this is our low-pro 10 system. It's a 15mm system that goes over the existing floor deck, either a structural deck over joists or directly over a concrete floor. The low-pro 10 system uses a 10mm pipework, which sits in the 15mm pre-routed fibre gypsum board to hold it in place. The boards are 600 by 1200mm and come in two types to accommodate the pipe. One with curved runs for the turns and one with straight runs for the middle areas. At the edge of the room, where the pipework runs back to the manifold, a piece of castellated panel is used so that there is the freedom to route the pipes as needed. This is filled up with some self-levelling compound over the top, flush with the top of the board. Once that's done and dry, you can put your floor coverings on top. One thing worth noting is that if you are going for a thinner floor covering, like a luxury vinyl tile, this system would require a 6 to 10mm skim of self-levelling compound to get an ultra-flat surface, which means you may want to consider going for our slightly thicker low-pro max system that dries level enough for luxury vinyl tiles without additional preparation. Engineered boards can be laid directly over the top. Tiles will just require a decoupling membrane between the low-pro system and the tile. And finally, if you're using a carpet, you just need to grout over the channels so you wouldn't feel any lumps and bumps. Low-pro 10 can give you a really nice, ultra-slim underfloor heating system. Low-pro Max is our highest heat output underfloor heating system, thanks to the highly conductive self-levelling compound, which makes it really popular in renovations. It's also the option we'd recommend if you're retrofitting a heat pump for this reason. It's just 22mm thick, which is a little more than the 15mm low-pro 10 system. Low-pro Max uses a 10mm pipework that sits in a pre-formed castellated panel with a self-levelling compound poured on top. The castellated panels have a peel-off adhesive layer and stick directly down to the concrete or structural deck below. We supply a primer to get the floor deck ready for the panels to go down. The edges of the panels actually overlap to fully tank the floor and hold the liquid self-levelling compound. You're looking at 150mm spacings between the pipe to maximise heat output, which is really important to get a nice even heat distribution across the floor. Once the pipe is down, the included self-levelling compound is poured over the pipework. The compound is specially formulated so we know exactly how it reacts and performs as part of an underfloor heating system. This is supplied in 25kg bags to be mixed and poured on site. If you're doing an area larger than about 30 or 40 square metres, it's probably better to get a screeding contractor to mix and pump the compound, or it'll be a pretty massive and tiring job. The self-levelling compound is really quick drying, and after about 8 or 9 hours you can walk on it. And after only 72 hours it's fully cured and ready for floor finishes to be laid over the top. So it's a really quick installation. far quicker than a traditional screed system where you're waiting weeks for it to dry. And one last big advantage of the Low Pro Max compound is that it dries fully flat and can have thinner floor coverings laid directly over the top. You just need to be careful of the floor temperature with some of the more sensitive floor coverings, like vinyl, which is why we provide floor sensors to protect those from any potential damage. It's a great system, quick to install, low profile, and really high performing. And that's Low Pro Max.